Hello everyone, my name is Andrea and welcome back to my channel. Today I want to show you how to make your very own face mask. Not only is it useful in everyday renos, but it's become super useful and needed with the current situation that the world is in. Now, by no means am I saying this is as good as a proper N95 mask, but hey, you know what it's better than? Nothing. I'm going to show you two versions of this mask. One with a pocket for a filter and one without. The materials you will need are a few pieces of blank paper, ruler, and a pencil. You will also need some cotton fabric, scissors, pins, a couple pieces of elastic, and wire. You will also need a small piece of felt, which I forgot to show here. First, we're going to make the pattern. My first mark is at 13.5 centimeters. Mark this again higher. Then you want to measure up 18 centimeters. I know, I should have used a longer ruler. Then you want to connect your lines. Now you want to measure up from the bottom right side 4 centimeters, and from the top 5 centimeters. Then from the left side at the top, measure in 4.5 centimeters. And from the bottom, 4 centimeters. Now measure from the bottom up 9 centimeters on both sides to divide it into two sections. Now we're going to connect all the marks we made. On the left side, you want to curve the line outwards. This will be the nose part of the mask. Then those other two you want to curve inwards. I freehanded this. You could use one of those fancy sewing rulers if you got one. Label your pattern top and bottom. At the top right, you want to measure in 4.5 centimeters to the curve to get the mark you need for your wire. Then you want to measure in 1.5 centimeters from the top and bottom. This is where you will attach your elastic. So now I'm writing on it the fabric directions. If you are making a mask with a pocket, you will need to cut 2 of these pieces out of fabric and 2 out of felt. If you are making a non-pocket mask, you will need to cut 4 of these pieces out of fabric and 2 out of felt. Now just cut that out. I forgot to mark the grain line earlier. It goes from top to bottom and it's the direction of the non-stretch in the fabric. I will show you how to figure this out later. It's super easy. Now to make the pieces for the pocket. You will need a second paper. Then you want to draw a line, making sure to leave enough space on top for tracing the top part of the pattern. Match those center lines and trace the top. Then you want to do the same thing with the bottom. Match the lines and trace the bottom half. I labeled each one and gave it its grain line. To make this an overlapping pocket, we need to add 3 centimeters to each one. Then you just want to extend the lines on the right. So for these pieces, you will need 2 of each pattern cut out of your fabric. Go ahead and cut those out. For my fabric, I'm folding it in half. Makes more sense to cut 2 of something at the same time. So here is how to figure out your grain line. Stretch your fabric from top to bottom and left to right. Do you see how the left to right doesn't give? That's your grain line. Told you it was easy. So now you want to lay your pattern with the matching grain lines. Mine was easy and didn't have an up or down. If you are using a special print, you may want to move around the pieces so they are upright with the pattern. Go ahead and pin those down. I usually stab myself at least once, but today I fared quite alright. Then cut that out. Then you want to remove those pins and mark each top piece. Trust me, this will be important. I just penciled in a T for top. Then just set those aside. Now you will take your piece of felt and fold it in half. Place the larger pattern piece on top and pin this down. The grain line shouldn't matter on felt since it usually doesn't stretch in either direction. Then cut that out. Remove the pins and mark a T for the top as well. Trust me, important. Go ahead and pin the curved edge together. For the fabric, you also want to pin all the outward curved pieces. I mean, if you're good at keeping things together, you can skip this step. We're going to sew a straight stitch along these lines. My seam allowance is to the right edge of my sewing machine foot. I think it's about 7 to 8 millimeters or 3/8 of an inch, as it says right there on my machine. I guess that's what those marks are there for. I'm just adding the next piece once the first one is finished. That way I save on thread, in case you were wondering. Oh, and you also want to do a bit of back stitching at the beginning and end of each piece. Once done, cut those pieces apart. For the felt piece, you want to fold each small piece away from the center. I'm just using my nail to crease this down, but feel free to use an iron. This just makes sure that it won't be too thick to sew through later on. Then just straight stitch down the one side, turn it over, and go back up the other side. I kept pulling and flattening out the center. Now that seam is nicely contained. For the fabric pieces, you want to push each seam to the side. Once again, just using my nail and fingers to flatten that. Since this one will be the one with the pocket and it will get opened a lot, it is recommended to close off the raw edge. For this, I will be using a zigzag stitch. Now I'm just going to recrease that. On the bottom flat edge, you want to fold up about 7 millimeters. I'm creasing this with my nail again. Feel free to use an iron. That actually might have been faster. Then you want to fold it up again. This will hide the raw edge and give it a nice finish. I pinned mine down, but once again, if you don't have a problem keeping things straight, you can totally skip this step. Repeat the same thing with the other one. These two will get straight stitched. Now I'm going to mark where the elastic goes on my larger piece. I just used my ruler. I could have used my pattern, that's what it's there for, but I guess I just wanted to do this the hard way. I'm going to pin my elastic on this mark. Then you want to carefully bend your elastic downwards, making sure not to twist it. See, the elastic should be perfectly flat. Repeat this on the other side. Then you want to zigzag stitch just the edge of the elastic, just enough to keep it in place. Then go ahead and straight stitch the seams you created about 1 millimeter from the inside edge. If you wanted to use ribbon instead of elastic, you could just coil up the ends and pin them to the inside to make sure they stayed out of the way. Now it's time to start putting all these pieces together. Take your felt piece labeled top and your larger piece labeled top, and you want to lay that fabric piece right side up on top of the felt. See, the T's came in handy. Then you want to take your smaller top piece and right side down match all three together at the center seam. Go ahead and pin that. Then go ahead and match those edges. Use as many pins as you need. Now that the top is pinned, you want to turn it around and pin the bottom the same way. Just overlap the bottom piece on top of the top piece. Here I'm marking where the wire will go. This is my mistake. Don't copy me. I should have marked these on the right side of the fabric. This will disappear once I turn it inside out. But I haven't clued into that yet, so let's move on and laugh at me later. Now you're going to straight stitch all the way around. All right, perfect, that's done. Now zigzag all the way around. Let's imprison that raw edge. I guess you could also use pinking shears when cutting this out. Supposedly they stop the edges from fraying. I've had mine all this time and never tried that out. Now it's time to turn it right side out. Now here's my little trick to get super sharp corners. You want to fold each edge along the straight stitch seam line. Then reach your finger in and pinch these folds. Now hold tight and turn it out. Perfect edge. Once again, you want to imagine the straight stitch extends out and fold along those lines. Then reach in and pinch that fold tightly while turning right side out. Easy, right? It's a trick I use all the time because I hate cutting the corners. I'm always worried I'm going to cut it too close. Then just smooth the edges the best you can. And here is where I figured out that my marks are on the wrong side. Go ahead and laugh now. I just went ahead and transferred them to the outside. But first we need to top stitch all the way around. I think this one is more of a 2mm border. See, super sturdy now. For the wire, you want to stitch a channel along the top. I once again use the same foot width to the stitching as my seam allowance. Hindsight, I should have left both sides open. If your wire doesn't want to go in one side, at least you have the other side to try from. I got lucky with how the inner seams were folded and that it went in smoothly, but if I would have tried from the other side, it would have been a tougher story. Then just sew that channel shut on the other side. Done, easy peasy. This is definitely my preferred way to make this mask. And if you happen to have a very high rated furnace filter, you could chop that up into inserts. Mine unfortunately had this wire mesh on the inside, so it had to stay there. I just had to be careful inserting this because of the bare wire edges. I guess the good part about the filter having wire is it's even more moldable. For this next one, it's almost the same thing as the first, but just fewer pieces. I went ahead and folded my fabric in half twice. I'ma cut 4 pieces at once. That's right, super lazy. Once again, label the top with a T. Cut out another piece of felt like before, also mark with a T. Then pin all the curved edges. Just like the last one, these will get a straight stitch. Then you want to repeat the same thing with the felt, flattening the edges and sewing them down. Go ahead and crease the fabric pieces. Mark where to put your elastics. I went and did this the hard way again. Then attach the elastics like before. To layer your mask, you want to find the top for the felt, then lay one of your fabric pieces right side up with the tops matching. Then place your second fabric piece right side down with the top matching. Then pin all the way around. The only difference when you sew it is you'll leave an opening at one end so you can turn it right side out. You don't need to zigzag the edge because once sewn shut, there won't be any internal disturbances. I don't know why I even bothered with the wire marks. I totally forgot to add the wire at the end. Just wait for it. You'll know the exact moment it hits me. Turning this right side out. That was a challenge. That's why the first one was easier. But that's okay. I just kept pulling at the fabric until it finally went through. But getting those sharp corners, that was not easy. I even tried pulling the corner back through to do the fold and pinch trick. The corners at the opening didn't work as well. I think it could have been better. Then you want to fold in the fabric along that invisible seam continuation line. You can stitch this first with a needle and thread if you like, or you can just skip that and go straight to top stitching around. I don't even know why I'm marking the wire since I'm sewing the sucker shut first. If you really wanted to add the wire, you'd have to make the channel first. Add the wire, close the channel, and then top stitch the edges. But I didn't do that. So wait for it. Here it comes. 3, 2, 1. There it is. Other than that, it's still a pretty good mask. Perfect for home renos and stuff. I would recommend adding another centimeter to the elastic for the one with the filter. It is a little snug, but the one without the filter is perfect. Thank you so much for watching. Once again, this mask will not replace the actual medical grade masks out there, but these homemade masks are good enough to slow down the spreading of viruses, even if it's the common cold. So everyone, please take care out there. Let's stay safe. All right, thank you again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye! Then just straight stitch, then just straight stitch. Oh my God, this is awful. Why, that's such a tongue twister. Man, I can't say straight stitch. That's a tongue twister. You say straight stitch.